Okay, we should all be sorted now with our headsets. It's channel 2, so please select channel 2 if you haven't done it yet. If you have any technical problems, our team is happy to support and assist. And thanks for your flexibility here. So I'm more than delighted to introduce you to our second keynote speaker this morning, coming from Chile. Chile itself stands at the center of many of today's global energy debates. It has what the world needs, from lithium to copper to renewable energy resources. And of course, it's also fostering its own green industrial development. Y ahora tengo el gran placer de dar la bienvenida a nuestro primer keynote speaker, el expresidente de Chile, Gabriel Boric. Gabriel Boric fue presidente de Chile entre 2022 y 2026 y representa una nueva generación en la política chilena, no solo porque se convirtió en el presidente más joven.
Not only because he was the youngest president in the history of the country. He represented a broad coalition of the Chilean left. He's an important voice in debates about democratic transformation, social justice, ecologic transition, and the role of Latin America in the construction of a fairer energy future. In his speech, in his keynote, he will reflect on the potential of international cooperation in the area of sustainable energy, and he will talk about his own experience in the light of global development. Please welcome Gabriel Boric. Thank you to all of you for being here. I'd like to say that I'm highly motivated and I'm really grateful for being here in Berlin and especially here at Heinrich-Böll Foundation, because the Heinrich-Böll Foundation has supported us for many years, nearly 20 years. They supported us in the establishment of new discussions in Chile. They trusted us when we had just come out of university. They helped us develop capacities that maybe without their support would have been very difficult to achieve. And I'd like to tell you that these forums of academies, civil societies, students, representatives of civil society organizations, social organizations are really important. And little by little, each of them is moving the issue forward, is making its own contribution to change the world. There are moments in history, as the one that we're living right now, when there are people who try to convince us that multilateralism, what we're living in these meetings, are sterile, that they're not worthwhile, that they are a type of meeting of progressive people that are disconnected from the world. But with a lot of conviction, I tell you this is not true. Because, as Jennifer said, they might slow down the course of history. But there are certain things that, for our existence as humanity, are unavoidable, such as, for example, energy transition, which is our topic today. Thank you very much to the Foundation for inviting me. Thank you to everybody who's here. Thank you to Chileans who are here today. I'm really honored to be with you. I'm honored to be with the Chilean community here in Berlin. And if you hear some enthusiastic cries back there, these are the cries of my daughter, who is here as well. So Don't be scared. We take her everywhere, and we're happy if she intervenes in our activities. Thank you, Jennifer, for being so clear, for being so precise, and for really speak frankly. The topic that brings us here is really fundamental because scientific evidence accumulated over decades, and which is denied by some people today, by some people with a lot of power, shows with a high degree of certainty that the burning of fossil fuels is the main cause of global warming. This is why when we hear the leader, the president of an important country in the world, like United States, Donald Trump, when we hear him say, "Drill, baby, drill," it feels like kill, baby, kill. And he says that with a lot of pretense, and he has this ideal of impunity. But after those two words that he repeats, there is a principle that is really deeply rooted, and we have to stand up against it. We have to say, no, enough. And we are many. And we are many who are here to fight. There is a scientific consensus, a wide scientific consensus, that climate change generates high economic and social costs. And then there is a link between fossil energies and climate crisis. So there is a consensus there are high economic and social costs, and that's important. The progressive sectors, the left, we have to be able to transmit that with a lot of clarity, because there are also those who laugh about climate action. They say it's a type of worries, of hippies, of some worried activists, but that's not it. When I see the wildfires in my country, in Chile, they're more and more frequent, and they're more and more brutal. When I see the floods in India, and also in Spain and in Havana, we cannot be indifferent to that. We cannot deny that that has to do with what we as humanity have done with our development model. So there are people who they're real people, and generally it's the poorest people who suffer because of the effects of climate crisis. And climate crisis is the product of our lack of action. Several studies also conclude that the economic cost of inaction will far exceed the costs of adaptation and of energy transition. And every day that we don't do anything, and every day that we are not acting with great conviction, it will become more expensive in terms of ecosystems, human lives, and also, yeah, it will be more expensive also in terms of money. I'd like to use this opportunity of being here in Berlin to mention that in the winter of 2022, in our summer, in February, days before I assumed the presidency, the illegitimate aggression of Russia against Ukraine began, the invasion of Russia. And that had the consequences of a war, but it also brought back a reality that in the 21st century was already forgotten, especially in Europe. It was the fear of losing their heating due to the outbreak of war. At the same time, while there was a great debate here about whether the gas from Russia could be replaced, in Chile, And in many countries in the world, in Latin America, etc., and just as we're seeing now with the war on Iran, we immediately also felt the impact in the form of an inflation shock that affected our people. And there were different ways of facing that. We decided to make adjustments to lower the cost of living. And we, as a state, became present, and we started protecting those that needed our protection the most. There are other countries, other governors that took different decisions, but these decisions that are taken far away from us, in this case in Latin America, have a concrete impact. So we're all interconnected. We're a lot closer to each other than we think. It took Paula and me almost a day to get to Hamburg. We had to go to Paris first, and then we went to Hamburg, and now we're in Berlin. But the decision of starting a war immediately connects us, and it increases the cost of living of so many people. So that's happening also in Latin America. In Africa, we're not talking a lot of Africa. We don't know Africa a lot, but more than 600 million people still lack access to reliable electricity, and they're suffering similar consequences. So we have a global crisis. We have 2 wars on 3 continents, but one common root. Energy, which is the topic that brings us together today, is not only a production input. Nowadays, it's the heart, the center of household life, the backbone of state sovereignty. And it is also the fault line in global geopolitics. I'm not here to just talk about the crises and saying that's all bad. No, I am really an optimist, and this is why I want to say to Jennifer, I love your energy. I want to say that we can face this, we can change it, and it depends on us, it depends on human will. And for that, we need to become a majority again. It's not enough to be right. It's not enough to believe that we are right. We have to convince the majorities of our peoples that this fight is worthwhile, it's necessary, it's existential. But it will also give us benefits. It will improve our lives, and I will go into detail on that in a moment. For decades, since Bretton Woods, or even the foundation of the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, the world order had one central axis. It was the transatlantic relationship between Europe and the United States. It was an imperfect axis. There's no doubt about that. It was marked by asymmetries, but it was predictable. Yesterday, we had dinner with some of those who are present here, and I was surprised to note the different image that the United States has here in Germany and Europe, and the image that we have in Latin America. For many in Latin America, the United States was a reliable partner until recently, but it was also a country that had intervened and that had helped build dictatorships on our continent, in our region. And here in Germany and other European countries, and recently I read a book that I recommend. I don't remember the title anymore, but it's about the history of Germany that describes the transition from socialism to free market and the role of the United States in all that. And it was very interesting. But you see the United States as some kind of liberator, as a role model, but we in the leftist world, we have a more distant relationship to the United States. But the world order built after the Second World War was based on this transatlantic relation between the United States and Europe, with rules that were relatively predictable. There were some unwritten rules of support and others that were written that were fundamentally dissuasive. Some of those rules are not so acceptable, and please allow me to take the liberty to mention the unconditional support of the United States and the European Union for Israel and its genocide that it's committing not only in Gaza but also in the West Bank. And that has to stop. I don't want there to be any doubt. I distinguish between the right to exist of Israel and the genocidal criminal government that of Benjamin Netanyahu. So a good part of the multilateral architecture was based on that axis, the United Nations system, trade agreements, international financial institutions, the Paris Agreement itself. And this axis is breaking apart in different areas. Energy is at the epicenter of this fracture. But before I enter the discussion about energy, please allow me to make a little reflection. I'd like to talk about the new election of the General Secretary of the United Nations. We, together with Brazil, we presented the candidacy of Michelle Bachelet, our ex-president. And the current government of Chile does not support her, but her candidacy will be maintained, and she gets more and more support. But my point is, the UN was created in 1945. I don't remember the exact number, but might have been about 70 sovereign states. And the world back then was very different from today's world. So when we say the rules are changing and there is a crisis, the response is not to get back to the former rules, but to build new rules. New rules that make sense to all the peoples and that allow us to speak among peers and that do not build a world of a hegemonic world, but a world of associations between and relations between many different countries. So let's talk about energy now. Jennifer said that Donald Trump's administration has made no secret of its agenda. He says explicitly that America wants to dominate. He wants American energy dominance. It's a brutally honest strategy. The United States has gone from being a major net importer of energy to becoming, since 2019, a net exporter. That was during the first Trump administration, but also different other administrations. And all that thanks to the boom in shale oil and shale gas through fracking. As a result, they have enormous reserves of oil and gas, to which it seeks to add the oil of Venezuela. Before, when the United States started wars in different parts of the world, Iraq, Afghanistan, they always said the goal was to achieve democracy. Well, I would say that was not true, but there was a debate over that. But nowadays, they don't even say that anymore. They say we're there for oil. They even dare. Well, I'm really surprised, and we're always surprised about these things. The official account of the White House puts a map of South America where Venezuela appears with a flag, or with one star of the flag of the United States, and it said 51st state. That's exactly as it was posted on the website. And this cannot only be due to Trump's madness. This is really an institutional position. It has subordinated itself to this person, and this is there is a very profound institutionality behind this, and that makes this policy so much more dangerous. It's a new type of imperialism. The addendum of Trump to the Monroe Doctrine, this idea of America for Americans, and he is not referring to Colombians or Bolivians or Chileans or the people from Costa Rica. No, America for the United States. That's what he means. And in our point of view, this is unacceptable. We have to stand up to that. We don't have to be submissive. And what is happening in Venezuela, and I think it's important to mention that Nicolás Maduro was a dictator. He stole the elections. There was the greatest exodus of people since the war in Syria. But that's a crisis. But so we can say that's wrong. That's bad. But we can also say that what the United States is doing in Venezuela is bad, just as bad as what Maduro has been doing in his country. I can, and we can, and the states can say these things. I think Chile, during my government, and now Spain, can be radically against the genocide on the part of Israel. We do not have to choose between barbarians. There are other ways. Things are not black and white. But let's get back to the topic. Now we see that the American energy dominance is used as a geopolitical instrument, maximizing the production and export of fossil fuels to bind allies and rivals into energy dependence on U.S. sources, pressuring Europe to buy American liquefied natural gas, offering coal and LNG to Africa and Asia as a solution to energy poverty, and dismantling all domestic support for renewable energy. And there's also a political discussion that's important that we have to involve in. If our discourse is we have to close the coal mines, but what are we going to do with the workers there? So if we do not take responsibility of resolving their problems, then that is a breeding ground for the far right. So this is not only an energy transition, it's a fair transition.
That's justice. In a transition, it is very important to have a long-term sustaining of that change. On top of that, China has become a key player in the global energy transition because it simultaneously dominates the manufacture of renewable technologies and the processing of critical minerals that are essential for clean energy. China leads today global production of solar panels, batteries, electric vehicles, and wind power components, as well as controlling much of the refining of copper, lithium, cobalt, graphite, and rare earths used in energy storage, electromobility, and electricity grids as well. As a result, much of the global rollout of renewable energy currently depends on industrial and technological capabilities developed by China. China is a major actor. We cannot deny that. We in Chile are very proud because our capital, Santiago de Chile, is the city in China with the most electrical grids in the world, made by Chinese technology. We must admit that. And that changed our city in terms of noise and contamination. Noise not only in the air, but also in the way we can hear the city. And we are extending that to other regions of the country. It is a great progress for us. China is playing a fundamental role. There is one additional factor that sometimes is not considered in the discussion in terms of geopolitics and energy, but is part of another debate. But I believe that will dominate the debate in the coming years. I'm talking about artificial intelligence. The main bottleneck for the development of AI is not human talent or capital, it is energy. The data centers that power large language models, cloud computing, image recognition systems, and massive data processing consume amounts of electricity that double and triple every few years. That implies also more consumption of water use in our households. The most conservative projections estimate that AI's energy demand will exceed that of entire countries within the next decade. This has two direct consequences for this debate. First, whoever controls energy controls AI. The fossil energy dominance of Trump is not merely a climate policy strategy turned on its head, as we think that should be. It is also a strategy for technological supremacy, anchoring global energy dependence on American fossil fuels. It's also to anchor global technological dependence on the American companies that feed off that energy. This new techno-oligarchy, and as a matter of fact, it has warned us about this. And the second consequence is that AI is a geopolitical weapon and at the same time an economic multiplier that produces this inequality. The countries that gain access first to AI will have competitive advantages in sectors ranging from medicine to agriculture, from industry to finance. Those that do not gain access or gain access under conditions of dependency to AI, they will be consumers of foreign technology and not producers of their own technology. And that will have consequences also in terms of culture, not only in terms of economy. And that will be very important in terms of dissemination of knowledge. We spoke yesterday about the situation in Chile, in Brazil, with the cooperation of other countries. We started a new project for artificial intelligence made in Latin America, so that we're not dependent on different AIs coming from other places, like OpenAI and others. That means the old patterns. Oh, my love, my baby agrees with me. The old pattern we speak of in Latin America, we provide the resources, and you, the developed countries, you provide the added value, is now being replicated also in the digital realm. We need to stop that logic. We need to change that. The energy dispute being debated at this very forum is not just about the climate. It is also about who will define and shape the 21st century, the future. In the face of this, I believe Europe must position itself as an alternative. That is sustainable energy cooperation, the European Green Deal, the Global Gateway. And the question this forum must ask itself is not whether Europe is right in its diagnosis. I believe it is. But the question is whether Europe will live up to its own promise. The countries in the Global South, such as Chile, suffer the most distressing consequences of climate change while we are seeking our path to development. A global south, which by geographical accident is also a major supplier of non-conventional renewable energy, green fuels, and critical minerals that are necessary for this energy transition. That is why we are also a destination for investment from all developed countries, and also from China. Our intention and necessity is to be active agents, not passive objects in this new order that is being built. For that, we need a greater Latin American integration. That's a great challenge. It was very difficult to achieve that. What is the relation between Latin America and Europe? Gita, where is Gita? Sorry. Please tell me if I speak for too long. So please just tell me to sum up. The relation between Latin America and Europe has two stories. For a long time, for centuries, Latin America exported silver, guano, saltpeter, copper, and oil, and wealth. But we didn't achieve development. In every crisis, we can see that the saltpeter crisis, when the Germans, during the First World War, they created synthetic saltpeter. That affected Chile. It was a great recession at the end of the 20s. And that's affected Chile in a huge way. When COVID came, Latin America had the most casualties per capita because of COVID. That's related to different questions. Everything is intertwined. And that's why we didn't manage in our region to build up a model for development that is equal, offering guarantees for the most part of the population to access basic services like health system, healthcare. Every time the world found a new commodity it needed, our countries became suppliers. That happens also in Africa. And our countries became providers. So we offered natural resources, but we did not build, together with foreign investors, the capacity to generate knowledge and technology which produce the added value that increases and makes the profits from natural resources sustainable. Something interesting to remark is in terms of natural resources, Norway, for instance, they have oil. They were able to assume the necessities of energy transition. There was a lot of opposition as well. It wasn't for free. But they did build a model for development, not based only on extractivism. The good news is that today we have a historic opportunity for this new necessity, global necessity of critical minerals for the energy transition. We have the opportunity for writing a new story. We might lose that opportunity if we resort to old patterns. We need to change those patterns for a sustainable development. Anything else is not acceptable to us. We need a different rhetoric, but also different structure. We need to base ourselves on horizontality, not subordination. We must address common challenges that ensure the sustainability of global development, particularly in the least developed countries. This requires the creation and transfer of new technologies. A good example of that is the electrolyzers needed to produce green hydrogen and its derivatives. Europe, Chile, and other countries in Latin America face common challenges. I think the progress in that direction would be key for development and also for democracy. One of the reasons why I believe this forum makes a lot of sense and this type of meetings is because Europe and America share common values. We have shared values. Those values must not be only rhetoric. Not only rhetoric. We need to deepen democracy, depending on the factor that the the development model is extended to all places. Our constituency, our peoples need that. Otherwise, they will mistrust democracy because they're not getting the solutions they need for the cost of living, among others. The question is not only whether energy is green. The question is who owns energy, who is benefiting from that, for whom is energy built. Please allow me to tell you about my experience as a president. I was invited not only because of my ideas, not because I speak so fast, but because I was a president and have experience from the government. In my government, we did some things differently, and we showed that things were possible. Thank you, Jennifer, for what you said about our work, because politics is a teamwork. Yesterday, I was in Hamburg speaking about that. Every leadership that becomes imprescindible is bad leadership. We need a common effort. Chile holds 23% of the world's lithium reserves. It is home to the world's largest copper exporter, which is Codelco. It's a state company. We have the Atacama Desert in Chile with the highest levels of solar radiation on the planet. We have wind in the Patagonia region. In a world that needs critical minerals and renewable energy for its transition, Chile has what the world is looking for. The world needs Chile, and Chile needs the world. That's the same for many countries, not only for Chile. We are not at the center of the universe. For Bolivia, for Argentina, it will be the same, probably. During our government, we have promoted various measures to provide the world with what it needs, and at the same time, to strengthen the country's sustainable development. For example, the National Lithium Strategy positions the Chilean state as a central player with Codelco in order to negotiate from a different position, being sovereign of our own resources, but not closing ourselves off from the world. We, developing countries, need to avoid the trap of the 20th century in terms of speaking of the dichotomy, either state or market. No, we need to collaborate. The state is not only a subsidiary, but it's also offering capabilities. It's sovereign, but also cooperating with the private sector. Investments to offer added value with technology and industrial development. Let me speak about the national strategy of lithium. We based on 3 dimensions. They are interdependent on each other. Firstly, lithium is extracted in places where indigenous communities live. The peoples of Atacama, they are living under precarious circumstances, very bad conditions for our century, for our times. Our country is very rich in resources, but those communities don't have access to water. They don't have electricity 24 hours a day. That's not acceptable. Every development model needs to address that, needs to have a dialogue with the communities. That's the first point. The second point is the following one. We need to be able to generate a strategy of development that is sustainable in the long term. Approximately a third of the salt flats where we have lithium is not just for protecting those people. It's not about the wealth from lithium. It's about an ecosystem which is alive. We need to learn a lot from them. That's compatible. Development and sustainability. When I'm asked about an issue, and I do not consider myself, I will say that in another way. I believe that facing that dichotomy, either development or sustainability, development or ecology. I believe in a synthesis of both factors. Chile is a mining country. It will keep being a mining country. We will never give up mining. But we need to be able to exploit mining in a sustainable way. It will have some impact, but we need to reduce that impact the most we can. And we need to continue creating added value. That's why we created salt flats to be able to support extraordinary biodiversity and profit from those resources. We need to not be merely a shareholder. We need to understand those resources. We need to work in favor of development, like South Korea in the 70s. We have 20 million inhabitants, but we have the necessary resources and the human capacity. Not only we have mineral and natural resources, we need also development in terms of science and technology. Added that to natural resources, we have a more equal development. I'm finishing. I will go to the next point because I don't have much time. Just to finish, I would like to say the following thing. We need to understand the difference between building up own resources and building up capacities. A relation between a provider and a partner. Europe, with a grand tradition in terms of science, universities, research centers, experience in terms of industry, can be that partner. China is starting to be that partner. The United States is finishing, is not being that partner anymore. Switzerland has got no lithium, no oil, no natural resources, but they are using human capital to create a laboratory for physical particles, which is the most important in the world. We need to copy that model because knowledge will help us with that, but that's another debate. Just to finish, I would like to say that energy transition is not an option. It is absolutely necessary from the perspective of economy, and ecology is the most important thing in our generation. Renewable economy is the most important thing for the life of people. That transition could happen in a different way. It could be faster or slower, and that depends on us, on politics. That's why we need to have those debates. You are experts in different areas, and you need to push that also forward with energy, with optimism. Germany has been in favor of cooperation to development. Europe been an alternative for the model of fossil dominance by the United States. They are an alternative. But now you are having that debate about your own budget. Ukraine was invaded by Russia, and the United States is doing another war. The NATO also playing a role that also affects us. You need to spend more for defense at the cost of cooperation. What is defense? Defense is that weapons? Is that building up energy sovereignty? That's a question that is of paramount importance, because if Europe is investing in defense to protect its own security, while at the same time dismantling the instruments of cooperation that build its own security and that of its partners, the net result is not great security that will influence the invest in the defense. The Heinrich-Böll Foundation and other institutions have now less budget that was cut. This is not about charities. It could be the most intelligent investment for Europe. We need to act. We don't need more speeches. The Global South is not more rhetoric about partnership. It needs real technological development that generates added value and capacities for the South. The window is open, and we are at your disposal for work in that direction. Thank you very much for your attention.
La ventana está abierta. Muchísimas gracias.
So
Thank
the
you
window
so
of
much,
opportunity is open. Thank you very much.
for coming all the way here with your family to Berlin. It's an honor to have you with us. And we heard it's an existential necessity, and we also already heard the question, which is a perfect bridge to our afternoon session. What is Europe going to do? What is Germany going to do about this? So now it's time, I guess, to digest a lot. Also, thanks again to Jennifer Morgan, to both of you for these powerful introductory words to set the stage for the forum. We'll have a break, a shorter coffee break until 11. Also, there's gonna be coffee and snacks also downstairs. So it's upstairs and downstairs. For those of you who did not get a name tag yet, I just got informed that there's name tags out here, so you can get them. Please make sure to come back at 11 for our fishbowl discussion. Thank you so much.